Remember, everybody, as you're coming in, rename yourself to your name, comma, where are you from, or your name dash where you are from. I mean, you do want to give and receive referrals from other learning-based agents just like you, don't you? So
I do.
excellent. I love it. Thanks for participating. So it is 2:00 Central, 3:00. I'm actually in the Eastern time zone today. So I was going to say it's 3:00. We have an appointment at 3:00, but depending on what time zone you are in, we have an appointment right now. So welcome to session 5 of the MAPS Language of Sales. We're already halfway done. I don't know about you. I can't believe it. I mean, we're rapidly approaching family reunion, and we're going to be done before family reunion. So welcome to session 5 of MAPS Language of Sales. It's important for me to let you know that I appreciate your focus with all of the chaos occurring in the world right now. I mean, communication, I know you're going to agree with this. Communication is more important than ever. And I applaud you for being here to work on your communication skills. That's right, your communication skills. And as you know, in MAPS Language of Sales, we're working with you on the art of sharing words and ideas in a scientific, structured way that will allow you to raise your influence as a speaker while simultaneously supporting the listener in achieving his or her goal. Now, every week, it becomes clearer and clearer to me that you all are already realizing that the more focused you become on your effective use of language, the more you realize how much you have to learn. And that's exactly why you're here. So welcome. As you probably already know, I'm your coach. My name is Kara Mall, and I've been a transformational coach with MAPS Coaching for 7 years now. I can't say almost 7 years anymore. It's been a full 7 years, almost 8 years. I'm a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. I'm an IPEX certified energy leadership coach, an EQ certified practitioner, which is about emotional intelligence. And I'm a head coach within the MAPS ecosystem. I've had the honor and privilege of teaching and co-teaching this amazing class, this language of sales program, for over 4 years. And in fact, it's the very first program I took when I came to Keller Williams. And I know I've said this to you before, I use this every day. My coaching clients, several of you are on this call, know I use this language all the time. I key into language, kind of a language geek, if you will. And I like to build upon these concepts on a daily basis. And I'm excited for the MAPS language of sales because it incorporates the greatest communication tools known, the lessons and experience of powerful leaders and agents who know how to move people into action. I mean, we don't just make this stuff up. We've studied people who utilize these skills, the same skills that you're learning and practicing on a weekly basis. And it really does tap into the art and science, right? The art and science to systematically teach you as the participant a brand new language. Now, most of you know how this works, unless you've been living under a rock or in a cave for the past year. We're going to go over it in general. We're going to go over it very quickly in general. You're going to use the chat box. It's either below, to the side, wherever you have it on your screen, when either you have a question or to answer a question that we may have of the group. Now, remember, I'm teaching, I'm watching what's on the screen, I'm teaching. I don't always see the questions in the chat. At the end, we will have a question and answer session. I'll also give you the next 2 times for our office hours. And remember, office hours are where you can show up and you can ask any questions. Maybe you're a little behind, or maybe there's just a concept that you're like, not quite sure about this, or am I doing it right? Well, come to the office hours. I'm there to answer questions. It's not additional material. It's not bonus material. I'm not teaching anything new. It's strictly to answer questions. Think of me as Professor Kara, and you all are the amazing students that are there to show up to get your questions answered. So when we ask you to participate today, and by we, I mean me, when I ask you to participate today, if you have something that you verbally like to share, please feel free to use the hand raise, which is one of your options in your toolbar for Zoom. And we'll go ahead and at the appropriate time, we'll ask you to unmute yourself and talk. And in the meantime, everybody else should be muted. So last thing I just want to remind you is that every single one of these classes is recorded. Where do you find them? It's interesting to me. I'm still getting questions. Where do I find the recorded classes? They're in the same portal where you pull your workbook every week. They're in the Kajabi portal. You have access to those. We are technically done. I believe the last date of our class is February 3rd. You will have those recordings through about April 1st. So just make sure that you're taking full advantage. The nice part is this class was 8 sessions. If you do the math and figure it out, 8 sessions after we end is about the time where you wouldn't have access, about 60 days. It's about 8 weeks. So take the class over again. Our Facebook group is going to remain active. You can continue to ask questions in it. I'll be here to help you on your language journey. Now, you've invested in yourself and in a program that MAPS offers, and you know that I am so excited to work with you on this passion, and that's powerful language. So I'd love to hear the following from everyone today. We're going to start with the chat box. Here's the first question. How are you clearly seeing that your language skills have improved? How are you clearly seeing that your language skills have improved? So go ahead, use the chat box and type away. If you'd really like to share and you'd like to share something verbally, go ahead and use the hand raise feature. You'll pop up to the top of my screen and we'll get you to share. So how are you clearly seeing that your language skills have improved? Lori says, paying even more attention to mirroring and matching, very important. Getting better responses from people I'm talking to. That's the name of the game, right, Denise? Increased listening from Michael. Scott says, much more aware of how my language influences people. Stephen, more aware of how people communicate. Terry, by recognizing when you do and say something the old wrong way. It's not wrong. It's just, remember, we're learning better ways to communicate, right? The way you communicate is the way you communicate. You've all made the commitment to learn to communicate at a higher level. A bunch of them scrolled by. You guys can all see them. You can ask for help better, beginning to pay attention to what people say and mirror. Better conversations. I'm hearing and become more aware of who's using the correct way to communicate. Oh, Lori Sinclair, I've started using the techniques on myself to help me understand my own motivations. Whoa, like that little emoji, right? That's it. Because in order for you to be able to help somebody and help them, you've got to work on yourself. And I'm guessing that's why you're all here. You know, some of you may have said, I'm going to take this class because everybody said it's a good class. Those of you that are here and actively engaging all the time, you realize that by using these words on yourself, that's the most important. And we'll do one more. Mimi said, I didn't notice how much the word why is used by everybody, agents, sellers, buyers, and to be able to cut that out of my language is great. Exactly. Instead of why, what, everybody type in the box what we use instead of why. What's the easiest phrase? What, how. Yep, that's it. Questions that start with what, how, when. Questions that start with any word but why. What will that do for you? Why? Perfect. You guys are awesome. And I missed, there was one more person that said the VAK this week really helped them. So congratulations. I'm glad you guys are starting to see how your improved language skills are helping people. Now, here's the second question. Where are you seeing that you might need to go back and slow down to speed up your growth? Take a moment and look introspectively. Where are you seeing that you personally might need to go back and slow down to speed up your growth? So people, Scott says embedded commands. Jacqueline says the first and second module, paying more attention to others. The third week, listen closer. Love that. Listening, right? That's how we help people. Patience in conversations, building rapport. Wow. I'm so proud of you. Recognizing words and who the person is and how they like to communicate. Talk less, listen more, right? The old adage, we've got two of these and one of these. So it makes sense that we should use these more, right? Paying attention. Jacqueline says, I don't like my own voice. So then change it. Change it. Asking powerful questions for Mimi. You guys are awesome. So I'm sure that you're also realizing that it's quite a commitment to master new language skills. I told you from day one, this isn't a class that's easy. It's simple concepts. Applying them is the difficult part, right? Applying it is the difficult part. So it brings to mind this quote from a journalist and speaker, Malcolm Gladwell. Practice isn't the thing you do once you're good. It's not the thing you do once you're good. It's the thing you do that makes you good. Take that in for a second. Practice isn't the thing you do once you are good. It's the thing you do that makes you good. And I cannot stress enough to all of you amazing souls that are on this call that just writing your homework isn't enough. It's actually speaking with it. And next week, I'm going to ask for examples of who's had a great role play partner that you've been working with to practice these conversations. I want to hear how that's going for you all. So as we wind down this little part, you're naturally beginning to realize that, well, the habits you're building through the language of sales will pay off significantly in your career. I know they have in mine. Instinctively, you know that the work you're doing and the practice you're committing to is impacting everyone you come in contact with. And with that, we're going to move on. So in this session, like in all sessions, we're going to review your growth work. We're going to talk about the market of the moment. I wish I had a drum roll. Presuppositions of language. We're going to talk about quotes and extended quotes. That's going to be one of our language skills that we're going to work. The presuppositions of language, that's going to be more about mind, and we're going to use it in listening. And quotes and extended quotes, and then we're going to cover your growth work for the coming week. So let's start out by reviewing the VAK. So let's see. In reviewing the growth work, we asked you to pay specific attention to people around you and really listen when they speak. You were asked to begin to notice and identify what their preferential reference system was in the VAK, picking one person a day and writing down the way they made sense of the world, and begin using keyword backtracking with that person. So let's just do a quick review. We have our visual people, right? And in the box, on your page in your work from last week, there's the cheat sheet box, or our little homework builder, growth builder box, as we want to call it, that gives you all of these words that we can key into. So using the question box, the chat box, Share your most interesting or surprising experience that you had with a visual learning style. So go ahead and share an experience you had with a visual learning style. And if you think it's too long to type, raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, and I can call on you. So we're talking just visual right now. So who's got a great visual example that they would like to share with everybody? They heard somebody. And remember, someone who's visual wants to see things, pictures, diagrams, charts. They're probably glued to the slides. So we've got some great examples of visual sentences. I want to hear, though, who actually used it this week. Did anybody use it? I'm going to let you think about that. And know that there's always a little bit of a delay as I'm catching up in the chats. Want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So Cheryl says the focus of our meeting today is to decide on a price, one that will cause your house to sell. Janet says, once we get together, let's analyze the situation and go over the contract. Both of those great sentences for visual. Ronald says, I could see your energy rise when we toured this home. Absolutely. And you know what I love about that sentence, Ronald, is that sentence is adaptable. I could hear your energy rise. I could feel your energy rise when we toured the home. It's adaptable to whatever preferential learning style someone has that's on the other side of that conversation. And Cheryl said, let's examine the sold comparables and get your house sold on the market. You guys are getting it. So now let's take a look at auditory. Auditory learners, remember this, they prefer to hear what is being presented. They want to hear. They probably love conference calls where they can just sit and listen, or audiobooks, right? Someone who's visual wants a book with a lot of pictures in it. Someone who's auditory probably wants the book on tape. Someone who's kinesthetic, they probably want to feel a book. They don't like reading on a Kindle, if they even make those anymore, or something like that. They want an actual book. They're tactile. So auditory, they tend to respond best to voices and learn from group discussions. So using the question box, you guys have already started to do it. Go ahead and put in your most interesting or surprising experience or your favorite sentence you wrote this week. Scott said, all right, I want to see if I can slow this down enough to read what you have here, Scott. Scott said it was a difficult closing situation. Seller was looking backwards in time. Let's focus on the end game. So that was a visual. Great. Carol says, what I heard you say is, right, that's very common. And Carol, I'm going to say this not for you, but for everybody else on this call listening, be very careful to not get in ruts to continue to use the same things all the time. So what I hear you saying is, so you're saying, remember, that's why we have you write a variety of sentences, because you don't want to start sounding like a parrot. So thank you, because that's one that we will start to hear a lot. Once you sign the contract, let's discuss the next step. Sometimes you just need to cut through the noise and focus on your goal. Love that. Let's discuss setting a price, one that will cause your house to be the next one sold. Right. All those are words. I mean, I'm going to challenge you. If you're going to take the class again, and by take it again, I mean in the 8 weeks following, you're going to repeat the class and do it on your own, to use different words, to use words like mention, to use words like tone and talk, to build your variety of vocabulary. The more you do that, the more you're going to be able to reach more people. So Angela says, what you're telling is that netting the top dollar is most important. Let's discuss where we need to list the property. Love that. Telling and discuss. Love it, love it, love it. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about the kinesthetic. I don't know what it is about the kinesthetic. Just it just feels so fun, doesn't it? You know, they are the ones that have the learning style that they prefer a physical experience. They like a hands-on approach, and they respond well to being able to learn while doing or having a feel for what is being presented. So let's do the same thing. Let's use the box, use the chat box, and let's give us a sentence. And while you guys are typing in a sentence around kinesthetic, I'm going to share Diane said she was at an inspection. Her client used the word vibe. So I started talking about how they would feel living in the home. That's right, because that's the vibe. Does this give you the vibe you're looking for? Does this have the feel you're looking for? Love it. Love it. I just noticed it just feels right. I just had a hunch this was the right one. Once you sign the listing, I'll get everything in motion and get your home listed quickly. So motion, right? Get things in motion. They like that. I grasp that you're frustrated about. Love that. Grasp. Surely selling your childhood home can be very, very emotional. Emotional, right? Let's see. All right, Access Home Group. I don't know your actual name, and I love that. The texture of that kitchen really appealed to you, right? That's where, you know how you tell if you're out on showings and someone's kinesthetic? They go up and start feeling things. They feel things, or they walk in the door and they say, this just doesn't feel right. Out, right? My intuition, I fully support, gonna hustle and get your house sold for top dollar. Let's run back one more time. You guys are amazing. These are fantastic sentences. They're not your standard run of the mill. I mean, excellent job. You are totally getting the hang of it. And remember, when you use language that's in alignment with someone else's VAK, you're going to communicate with them in a way that will create that feeling of sameness and comfort, which is the building block of rapport. And you're doing it on an unconscious level. You're hitting their IR. So I want to do one more thing. I want you to either use the box or raise your hand. You guys are all being shy today, making me do all the talking. Where did you use keyword backtracking? Where did you use keyword backtracking this week? I'd love to hear an example. Angela, you're cracking me up, girl. I can feel your energy with all of the VAK and NLP in this class. So I want an example of using keyword backtracking. What did someone say to you and what did you say back? Janet says she used it on the phone. That's a great place to use it, right? Because if you can't see someone, that's one of the easiest ways to build rapport is by using keyword backtracking, right? And mirroring and matching and all that kind of fun stuff. So nobody raising their hand, nobody putting anything in the box. Nobody used keyword backtracking this week except for Janet. Oh, wait, who's the, I hear a voice. I hear a voice from Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. All right, tell us quickly, give us like the 60-second CNN version of the headline version of how you used keyword backtracking this week.
I sent one of my sellers an offer on their property with the net sheet. And she said, we don't want to pay any fees. We don't have to sell. I'm like, we got an offer. I've been working on your house. This is what you hired me to do, isn't it? She goes, yes, but the market's changed. And I don't think we want to pay any prices now. We want the buyer to pay for everything. And I'm like, let's go back. So what I hear you're saying is the market's changed. And I went into a couple spiels about her husband being a doctor. And I said, well, the market's changed. Your husband's been a doctor the last 6 months. So is his fees changing because the market's changed? And she's like, well, no, you can't compare it to the doctor. I said, well, you agreed to these fees and I've marketed my job and I'm doing my job. And you do want to sell your property, right? She goes, yes, but the market's changed and it's different now. So I don't think we want to pay anything. It went all of it, but it was fun.
Of course it did.
But
Of course it did,
it's
because we've
funny
all
how
been in
things
those
run.
situations. I love it.
But have y'all been there? Hey, I don't
Right.
think we want to sell anymore. We want
So
them to pay everything. I'm like, you guys are nuts.
wonderful. Cheryl,
I
thanks
didn't
so
say
much for
that.
sharing that
Sorry, I
with
didn't say
everybody. I appreciate that. And I know everybody here does too. So think about it. When are, while we've been teaching a lot of these concepts in isolation, what Cheryl did was a great reminder of keyword backtracking when acknowledging and validating, right? What I hear you saying is with someone who might have been an auditory learner, their VAK was auditory. That was the referential system they liked. And she repeated back to them their same words. Now, it can be as overt as that, or it can be as covert as, well, it sounds like what you're saying is you want to put the most money in your pocket that you can. And that makes sense. So there's many, many, many different ways to use this. And Evan is congratulating you in the box, Cheryl. So way to go. Let's look at our next part of our growth commitment. And that was embedded commands. The next part was to write 5 embedded command sentences per day around various topics. And then you were asked to use the embedded commands at least 10 times intentionally every day in a conversation with a client, coworker, or someone in your family. And just a quick review, embedded commands are words or phrases enclosed or embedded within a bigger sentence within a larger context. They're phrases that can stand alone. Remember, I said a great test for an embedded command is if you were to shout it at someone, would they know exactly what you wanted them to do? And yet we're not shouting it at them. We're putting it in the middle of the sentence and we're adding some vocal emphasis. They can have impact beyond what is apparent or intended on the surface. You literally become the voice inside their head. And from last week, there are things like feel good, reduce your price. You can literally turn anything you would tell someone to do into an embedded command. So let's quickly go through some examples. And this is your time to shine. So give us an example in the box of using an embedded command to close for an appointment while prospecting. Close for an appointment, because you're all looking out there. You're all out there trying to set appointments, aren't you? So type in the box a sentence that has an embedded command while closing for an appointment. So Ron says, that's another great question. So let's meet on Tuesday so I can address all your concerns. Doesn't that make sense? Even a little tie down at the end. Awesome. Awesome. Who else has one? Let's do a couple more. Or let's do this, because we've got a lot to get through today. Just put your favorite embedded command sentence in there. And I really like to see the non-business ones. Those are fun. Access Home Group says, you're anxious to hear what's going on in the market. So let's meet as soon as possible. Sound good? So their meet as soon as possible would be the embedded command. Let's meet to discuss. When is the best time to list? You do want to sell your house for top dollar. So again, remember how we said to write these out so that you can train your brain to use the vocal emphasis. And that would be with an ellipsis or a ... before the embedded command in all caps, and then a ... after. The dots remind you to pause. And that's why I look at these sentences and say, okay, I have to read it in my head to know how do I want my vocal emphasis to be. And yet, if I had some conversations written out, I would write them so I would know exactly when to blast those embedded commands. Let's see. Thanks, Andrea. When we start looking for homes, you'll get an idea what's out there. So the embedded command is start looking for homes. We're telling them we're going to start looking. There's no inventory in your area, so let's list your home now. Now, that's at the end of a sentence. You probably want to put something else in there. So let's list your home now for top dollar. or list your home now while there's no competition. Remember, it needs to be embedded in there so that the brain sinks in. It feels good to make a strong offer. It sounds like we should meet. You guys are getting the hang of it. So these are awesome. I appreciate it. So continue to use embedded commands. Ian, that's you've got a couple in there. Let's go ahead and schedule a time to here. Ian, I'm going to stop every time you have an embedded command in here. Let's go ahead and schedule a time to meet up and get agency paperwork going. You didn't realize this? And represent you. These are all embedded commands. That's a powerful sentence. Great job. So continue to use the embedded commands when you speak, and you'll be more persuasive when influencing others to make decisions. So what we want to talk about now is mastering the market. You probably have the same information in your workbook. I'm sure you're going to agree that as an agent, it's easy to get lost in the market, right? Whatever that market of the moment is. Over the past several years, for the past several months, if we're being realistic, many markets were fast moving, meaning homes were listed on Thursday, multiple offers came in over the weekend, and it allowed for, a single offer, multiple offers within a week, right? And for some of you, that still may be your current market, because inventory might be low, or we still have, shelter in place, or people are quarantining, or all kinds of things happening, right? We have different variations of the virus spiking, and people can do things or can't do things or whatever. How does your market right now? Now, and we're not going to answer these right now. I want you to go back, and this is part of your growth work for the week. How does your market of right now compared to your market of last year at this time? Remember, last January, there was no vaccine yet. Were you sure what was happening? Were you not sure what was happening? Really take a look. The easiest way, compare the numbers from last year to the number of this year. Look at how many listings were on last year versus listings this year. Compare the information. What specifically are you seeing? What makes you more valuable right now than ever before? These are the things you're going to focus on for part of your growth work this week. How did the months compare? What was the ratio of listings coming on the market to properties going under contract? How does sales price to list price differ than last year? Days on market. Where are we at with days on market? And what do you think is going to happen in the next 12 months? I'll share in our Facebook group later today. There was a great article in the Washington Post a couple days ago where it took 10 or 12 various entity experts, anything from NAR to the Home Builders Association, et cetera, and they all gave their prognostications for this year. It's interesting how many things they differ on and what they agree on. Here's a hint. Interest rates are going up. So let's think this way. Let's think, fast forward, it's a year from now. It's January of 2023. What do you think is going to be happening in the market? Part of your Growth Mastery Week will be to do some market research, as I said, and to figure out, well, what kind of market are you going to create in the next year? What are you going to do differently last year? What do you believe is going to happen? And how are you not going to react? How are you going to be out there proactively creating business? Whatever you believe for your market, I'm sure we can all agree that our perceived value rises in transitioning times. It doesn't matter if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market or a who knows what market. The question becomes, do you use language that causes people to feel comfortable and want to work with you? It's so much easier to be a powerful, effective, valuable real estate agent professional when you are the answer to the seller's questions and needs. A powerful way to create congruency in your communication and establish rapport with others is to choose to learn and understand some of the fundamental presuppositions that we're about to talk about. Before we do, Colleen, you have your hand up. Go ahead, unmute yourself. What's your question?
I just have a question. What
Yes.
was the ratio of listings coming on to the market to properties going under agreement, under contract? I'm a little foggy.
How many new listings are there compared to ones that are going under contract?
All right, so say there's 10 active listings and there's 20 that are under agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. How many new are coming on? Are there more coming on than are going off? Are there more going off than are coming on?
Okay. All right.
It's gonna vary, right? Thank you for that, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions in the Facebook group too. And I appreciate you asking. So we're going to start to look at the presuppositions of language, and so let's see. There are four things that we automatically presume and accept as true in this class, and they come from NLP. And the first is respect for others' model of the world. And wherever you see that purple and something underlined, that's a fill in the blank in your book. So our first presupposition is respect for another person's model of the world. Now, you inherently know that no two human beings have the same experience, meaning we can't fully see the world through someone else's eyes. I mean, there are several hundred of you on this call, and every one of you is experiencing it differently based on your past. Each of us has a powerful information processing center called our brain, right? It's the most powerful computer ever created. According to Britannica.com, right? Because I can't say the encyclopedia anymore because I don't even think they print them. According to Britannica.com, the human body, listen to this, sends 11 million bits per second of information to the brain for processing. 11 million bits per second. And yet the conscious mind only picks up 50. 11 million, 50. You heard that right. Once data is presented, the human brain begins to distort, delete, and generalize it down to 50 bits every single second. So take a minute and close your eyes. Go ahead and close your eyes. Unless for some reason you're listening to this in your car and you're driving. Don't close your eyes. You just drive. So close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, imagine there are 11 million pieces of confetti falling from the ceiling every second. I mean, they are dumping this confetti and they're falling right in front of your vision field. Now imagine that you're reaching out and every second you're grabbing 50 of those pieces. Keep in mind, there's 11 million bits falling and you're only grabbing 50. You are continually grabbing the smallest fraction of that confetti. Knowing that the confetti represents bits of information, let's make some agreements about this. The first is that you're probably not consciously aware of why you choose the information you choose because it's coming at you so quickly. Consider that what we tend to do is we automatically grab the bits of information out of habit based on our programming, which is nothing more than learned behavior from your past. The second agreement, is that it's highly unlikely that any two people ever grab the same exact confetti or bits of information when it's presented. For this very reason, it would also make sense that no two people have the same experience, even when presented with the same data, which, would be the third and fourth. That is the way someone, your spouse, your partner, your lead, your prospect perceives the world around you. I mean, everybody's having a different experience based on what their 50 bits are being chosen by their unconscious mind and processed. This data creates their world from their perspective, and their world is their reality. Since this is the way as human beings we process information, how can it possibly be true that something is just one way, right? That everything is finite? It can't. Choose to respect your listener's model of the world, whether it's with regard to politics, religion, how to raise kids, how to price their home, etc. Not saying you have to agree with them. Respect their way of thinking. So that's presupposition number one. Respect others' models. Presupposition number two. Resistance in a client, I call it drag, right? Resistance or rub in a client is a sign of a lack of rapport. And we've talked about rapport in several classes so far. Think about it. There's no such thing as resistant clients, only inflexible communicators. Only inflexible communicators. All accomplishments of the human race, both positive and negative, have involved the use of language. We use language in two ways. The first is to represent our experience. And when we use language as a representational system, we're creating a model of our experience. And as we discussed in our first presupposition, every person's going to have a different model of the world based on the data that they select. Secondly, we use our language to communicate our model of the world to each other. And we do this through conversation, through singing. I'm not going to sing. You're welcome. Through writing. When you experience resistance in a client, it's generated from a lack of respect for their model. Frankly put, people don't respond to your reality, as it says on the screen. They respond to their reality. Utilizing and listening and communications, utilizing listening and communication skills ensures rapport with a client. And you already know the best way to begin building rapport from session 2. It's by asking powerful questions. They get the person talking and sharing their representation. And remember that no two people have the exact same model. So when you fail to ask powerful questions, it imposes your model of the world on them. And that's when it creates resistance. Presupposition number 3. People, well, they are not their behaviors. People are not their behaviors. And stick with me on this one. If you're going to be in the people business, which we are, you can say, oh, my business is buying and selling houses. You're in the people business. You're solving a problem for them. It's critical to remember that people are not what they do. Sometimes clients, team members, leadership, etc., they behave in a way that might trigger you. And because you're triggered, you respond from your automatic pre-programmed state. Well, the same thing happens. You may trigger them and they may do the same thing. So think of being triggered like a fish with a hook in its mouth. In that moment, the fish is at the mercy of the person with the pole, because essentially it's powerless. It's stuck. You communicate differently and typically far less effectively when you're in a triggered state. You know, has there ever been a time where you said something to someone when you were angry and then you regret it later? It's because something happened and triggered you. All behavior is generated from a need either being met or not met. To become more effective in operating from this presupposition, ask yourself the 2 questions that are on the screen. What need might this client's behavior illustrate? And what could I do to fulfill that need? What need might this client's be? So if they get angry, they've got an unfulfilled need. How can you fulfill that need? Here's a hint. It starts with asking questions. So let's look at presupposition number 4. People, well, they're doing the best they can. People are doing the best they can. The 4th presupposition is that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them. Let's get some feedback from you on this. I want to hear what you think that means. People are doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them. So go ahead, type in the box. What do you think that means? People are doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them. What do you think it means? Did someone raise a hand? I hear a voice.
This is Michael Page.
Michael, how are you?
Good, my bold coach emerita.
You're awesome. You're awesome. So what do you think
I
that
never,
means to you?
I remember Diana Kokoschka always saying that people are doing the best that they can, and our frustration with them is a result of our judgment of them. I don't know if I'm saying it exactly right, but I'm getting the gist of it.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And that you are right on. And that, Michael, is one of my favorite quotes of all time. And it's from the book, The Strangest Secret. And Diana did put it in classic bold. And it was, people are doing the best they can at any point in time. All of my suffering is a result of my judgment of them, right? They're remembering this. And if you want more information on that, the holiday call that I did, that's available on habitual habits, dives more into people being propelled from a positive thinking state. So thanks for sharing that, Michael. So we've got a couple people that answered. I want to make sure that we get to these. People don't want to do things that are stupid. They're afraid to make decisions, right? They make experiences based on their past experience. I always tell my kids, you can't know something for sure. We always make the best decisions we can at the time, and we have to make them based on the information we have at the time. Yes, that's exactly that. And remember what Michael said, if it's not sitting right, we're judging them. If we leave and they're like, man, that seller was such a jerk, they wouldn't listen to anything I said. That's an opportunity for you to up your communication skills, because they were doing the best they could to protect themselves. So remember that everyone has a different model. And now that you understand that, what you and I may see as negative behavior is actually our opportunity to fulfill that unmet need in our listener. And when behavior's out of line with a successful outcome or relationship, utilize listening with the intent to understand, as opposed to the intent to answer. And I think these questions are in your book. If they're not, someone let me know, and I'll post them in the Facebook group later. But some things we can consider asking are, what is it that you've been attempting to communicate that I'm not hearing? So if you're sitting across from someone and they're frustrated, what is it that you're trying to communicate to me that I'm not hearing? Ask them a different way, right? What do you need most from me at this time? How do I best support you? How may I show up differently for you? What do you need the outcome to be? Notice that these all fall under the category of powerful questions, don't they? So let's visit an example. Someone's pre-programmed fear around money may keep them from hearing what you have to say when you tell them the truth about what the market and where their property needs to be priced. If you assume that they're just being difficult instead of acting from resources they have available, which is their programming, right? You completely miss the opportunity to use language to help them. And when that happens, you pull out all the tools in the toolkit that we've used so far. You acknowledge and validate. You ask powerful questions. You throw in some tie words and some keyword backtracking and embedded commands and some automatic and awareness presuppositions. And you listen with the intent to understand, to move them forward. So let's switch gears a little bit. Listening, speaking of listening to what people say, the second part of today's lesson is going to be focusing on quotes and extended quotes. And this actually becomes really fun, because I'm guessing you use this and don't even realize you're using it as a powerful tool. And that's a lot of the things that we're talking about, right? It's you're already using them. It's just becoming aware of them and using them to help your listener move forward. So by utilizing the language pattern of quotes, you allow yourself an opportunity to be direct with your listener without attaching the message to you or having the feeling that the message is coming from you. When you utilize quotes from the listener, when you utilize quotes, the listener loses the perspective that the message is from you. It's as if I'm just the messenger delivering the message versus being the author of the message, right? So here's a couple things. Quotes, they allow directness with your listener. You use it when you have something to say that you're uncomfortable saying. And it's a subtle way to deliver a very direct message. Okay, so everybody got those: directness, uncomfortable, and message. So here's a quote. I was talking, and I'm going to read it from my paper because you guys are blocking it. I was talking to my network of top producing agents across the country at a recent mastermind, and they were saying if you want to sell your house, you should use a strategic list price to drive traffic through your door. So it's not you, it's your network of top producing agents from across the country at a recent mastermind, like, oh, this one, that said something important and powerful. You're just the messenger delivering the message. So here's another one. You know what's interesting? I got a call from a client who just closed on their new home, and they said, I really want to thank you for telling me to sell now, allowing me to protect my equity. He said the fact that we sold high and were able to downsize was the best smart money move they've made in a long time. So now, in this case, who are you quoting? Use the box. Who are you quoting? Chat box, who are you quoting in that one? I got a call from a former client, right? Because, well, you were able to help that former client, so this is great. So, and clearly you're seeing by the way that this is typed on the screen that embedded commands are advantageous when you're making your quotes strong. Now let's look at extended quotes. Now, once you get used to using quotes, which again, you probably use all the time, you can move into the advanced strategy, which is extended quotes, which simply quoting a person who's quoting another person. The pattern becomes so powerful because it extends what you're saying to another person and extends it further for the other person that they're quoting. So psychologically, there's like truth in numbers, right? It's like, oh, we're gathering evidence. So let's take a look at this example. My financial planner said that he saw an article in the Wall Street Journal recently that said, list now while there's less competition. That sounds like good advice, doesn't it? So we quoted the financial planner who quoted an article in the Wall Street Journal, and we said that sounds like good advice, right? It's not us telling them to list now. No, that would be silly. We wouldn't tell them what to do. We're telling them what financial planners and people in the Wall Street Journal are saying. And here's another one. One of the top agents in the country was telling me that his mentor told him that we're in the early stages of a changing market and that sellers will want to sell now or wait 7 to 10 years to hope that the selling climate returns to the current state. Top agents, I was talking to a top agent in the country. Ooh, the unconscious mind goes, ooh, top agents. And they were talking to their mentor. Wow, a top agent has a mentor. They must be really smart and you're listening to them. That's great. I want to work with you. So great job for those that are catching on to this, understanding quotes and extended quotes. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to any questions that you might have before. We'll do about 5 minutes worth of questions. And if there's no questions, we'll go right into the growth work. So if anybody has questions or anything you'd like clarified on from today's session, go ahead and use the hand raise feature or take yourself off mute and yell, hey, Kara, I have a question. And I'm happy to do that. So what questions do we have? And while we're waiting for any questions, go ahead and copy down office hours Tuesday and next Friday. And there's the Zoom number. You just show up in the Zoom and Sheila, my amazing cyberbacker, lets you in. You ask your questions and then you leave. It's not a come and hang out for a half hour or anything like that. It's stop in, ask your questions and move on. And if you have questions, other people probably have questions too. So please feel free to stop by and ask your questions. So again, I'll stay on till the top of the hour for anybody that might have questions. Let's go over your growth work. So here's your growth commitment for the week. Complete your master your market stats and create your narrative. Now, pay attention. What that means is you're going to go look up what those stats are. The narrative means, how do you actually use these in a conversation with a buyer or seller? It's one thing to know your stats. It's a total another to know how to be able to take that same information, disseminate it into a way that moves the listener forward to what they want. So we're going to master the stats and create some narratives about what's going on in your market. And remember, it's been interesting because I had a couple conversations this week with one-on-one coaching clients where people are like, well, the market is the market, and people are like, it's moving, and others are like, it's not. If someone were to ask you, what's going on in the market now? What kind of market is it? You'd have the answers if you know your stats. Now, if someone were to ask me, hey, what's going on in the market? How's the real estate market right now? I'm not going to answer with a statement. I'm going to say, that's a great question. What's important to that about you? Or what's important about that to you? Because what if they're a seller and you start going, it's a great time to be a buyer, blah, 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 blah. Or what if they're a seller and you're like, oh man, we got multiple offers coming in, and they're a buyer and they go, oh, I don't want to do anything right now then. So complete that and be able to write a narrative. Now, you're also going to write 5 sentences daily using a combination of quotes and extended quotes. What that means is one day write 5 sentences with quotes. The next day write 5 sentences with extended quotes. Mix them up. I don't want anybody to take that as, I have to write 5 sentences using a quote and an extended quote. No, then you got quotes everywhere. So 5 sentences a day. It's like I'm tripping over that word today. Review sessions 1 through 4 and decide which lesson may require your attention, and go back and rewatch that session. Bring your questions to office hours and continue to share your sentences and questions on our Facebook page, etc. We will, Sarah, you said, is there a handy table to fill out regarding the market of the moment stats? We'll post the questions with the stats in the Facebook group. And I'll ask this, if anybody in the group has something. I know there are many teams that do actually have their teams doing this on a weekly basis, where they're pulling the numbers, keeping up on the inventory, etc. So if anybody has a great chart that they use, go ahead and put it in. You have the homework in your book. Janet, this is for you. This is when the office hours are. Continue to share your sentences. Keep up the great work. We've got, after this, 3 sessions left. Only 3 sessions left. Show up and be ready to dive in. Okay? I'm going to hang out for about another 2 minutes. Answer any questions. If you don't have any questions, thanks so much for being here. You guys always make my week. Thanks for showing up and playing all in. Have a great week. Tong Sing, no office hours tomorrow. Unfortunately, we have a scheduling conflict. So Tuesday and Friday of next week. Gary, thank you. About 10 miles southeast of Seattle. It's my pleasure to be here. Carol, when is there another class? I'm not sure what you're asking there. This class is every Thursday at 2:00 Central.
Not this one. When this session is over, I heard you say if you want to take language of sales again.
Oh, well, if you want to take it again, you have the material for the next 60 days and you can rewatch all the videos. After
Great.
that, I don't know when it's going to be on the schedule for the next time. We're actually writing a new version that is just going to be very different and much more NLP based. But this one, you have them for 60 days after the class ends. So
Great.
Put it on your calendar at a time that's convenient for you. Put it on your growth plan, put on your growth hat, and retake the class. And I mentioned that the Facebook page will still be live. So if you have questions, homework, etc., you can always reach out to me there. Thanks for being here today,
Right.
Carol.
Thank you.
Thank
I just
you.
missed
My pleasure.
last week was the only week. Thanks.
Good, good. And you know what, Carol, it's not like you have to know this to know this to know this. I've strategically written it so that everything kind of intertwines and each of them could
Okay.
stand on their own. So go back at your earliest convenience. Don't let it go too far. Go back and listen to it. Okay.
Will do. Thank you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, everyone. I have that it is the top of the hour. Cheryl is looking for a script and accountability partner. Look at the things in the chat. Post in the Facebook group. Everybody, have an amazing week. You all are powerful. Use language that matches. Bye, everyone.